Subdivision ordinance?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
When this, I'm just trying to remind myself when the subdivision is
Dividing the property into two, you can divide it once, but you can't divide it a second time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll start the meeting. Well, let's see, actually, it's 4 hours. What do you think? Seven o'clock, okay. So I call the meeting to order. There are 4 of us here, and welcome to your first in-person meeting. And so we are looking at the minutes of the previous meeting, which were distributed by email.
Yeah, so there's two corrections.
I'd like to make some minor changes to the paragraph at the bottom of the first page.
Let's take a look at it. So the two changes, just for the board's sake, that were made pursuant to suggestions were wrong. Glendale was put on the first sentence for the public hearing, and then the milking rule was 10 feet, not 40 feet. I'm just open to Northwest, so it's kind of by the time here. You got some options for the computer for that. It's coming.
So we're going to see this.
There, all right. So you see the last, where?
Okay.
Where you want to look?
Well, the fourth line down, the sentence, two words in the sentence. The sentence starts with David Strock challenged the CEO's comments and stated that, are you there? David Strock challenged the CEO's comments and stated that there was no basis to challenge the CEO. He changed the word challenge to delay.
Okay. Yeah, no, 2 seconds.
Does the
Okay.
CEO have the right to?
Well, I understand it. Doesn't mean we're going to change it.
I can't find it. Can you tell me what he means?
So it's the paragraph that starts out consideration.
I'm trying to find it. What email did you get sent? Do you know? No.
Not off my head.
It's attached to May 11th at 1:12 p.m. email.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I see the requested change. All right, what else do you have?
Basis to challenge the CP because the town approved the changes and the CEO's job is to enforce the strike out town rules and put in ordinance.
Yeah. Okay. See that.
The following sentence I want to be eliminated. Strong states that the CEO comments felt retaliatory because law was suggested on Mr. Pierce's property. Eliminate that one. That's a statement of opinion and it's a statement of suggestion.
It's the statement that you made.
No, I made that statement though.
No, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
But opinionated is a statement of suggestion.
We be no opinions in minutes.
So no,
I don't know if you ever noticed that.
we know your objection, okay? So, to the board, I don't have problems with the first two, to delay the CUP for the town's ordinance. I don't have any problem with those, and I think those are consistent. I mean, I said the sentence, you know, maybe I said it in, frustration, and maybe I shouldn't have said it, but I did say it, so that's why I put it in.
But the source, it's an opinion, it's not fact, and it's a statement of conjecture. Doesn't belong there.
I agree, it is opinion. I disagree, it doesn't mean it shouldn't be there, but
Okay, I'm not gonna fight it.
it's up to the board, not me.
Okay.
I think you need the sentence in. Because I think it's true. No matter-
Well, whether it's true or not is a different question. I said it, I mean, that's what I said. I would suggest we approve the minutes with changing the rate to challenge to delay and rules to ordinance. But otherwise, as presented, to the board.
I would second that, move it until we do.
Sure. You want to call a vote?
Ready, all those in favor? So that's approved. The next thing that we have is, to look at the shoreline zoning approval by the state. And we have an approval from the state here. And if anybody would like to see it, we have it.
Do you guys have this one?
No,
Okay.
in time.
Yeah, we'll just take that one.
So DEP received the amendment and they've approved it already?
Yeah, they approved it 2 days after they got it.
Okay. Okay.
And I think that's probably because Long Road did the preparatory work of going to the DEP before they brought it up.
Yep.
To say, this is good with you guys, so they probably got it, and said, oh yeah, I remember this.
So I'd like to let you run a meeting for a while.
Sure, I'll take over. Joe refuses stuff. So we have two Long Road, issues that, three actually, two for the board. Prior to the main DEP acceptance of the shoreline zoning change, we approved Long Road's request for a redesignation of the shoreline zoning district, which was the whole point of the amendment to the DEP, was to allow applicants to request a change to the district. And Long Road has asked that the board vote on their request again to make it clear that, you know, we're acting on the approved shoreline zoning. So I would move that we accept Long Road's December 10th, 2020 application for redesignation of the shoreline zoning district. As we did before, but this time, you know, after the main DEP approved it. So that's my motion. Any discussion? The second, yes, the second. Not second it.
I'd like to add some comments. I'd like to add some comments.
Sure.
Okay. The reason for this whole situation that I delayed CUP was because in section 8 of the shoreline zone, it says it says that permits that are dated while DEP has the amendment in hand can be accepted into the amendment. Through admission, not saying anything, is assumed that any permit before the date that DEP gets it is excluded. And that's what it was. CUP was signed on February 25th, and by April 22nd, DEP didn't have it. On April 15th, an engineer came to me for a construction permit for Longos, and I denied it because it was April 15th, was before the date, and the amendment and the ability to move the delineation line without the window exempt, gone. So I delayed it. Now that the DEP has it, I can execute a construction permit, and it'll be dated, and the delineation line will be included. I would also suggest that in the CUP, in question 11, they asked to be specific about Article 6 of why you're going for a CUP. They wrote as for Article 6, business use in rural zone district. There's no such thing in Article 6, Section C, the rural zone, of activities that the planning board can pass as a CUP. We have nothing about solar farms. I would suggest if we change that statement to construct a photovoltaic solar panel array on lot 1, map 6. Vote on it, sign it, date it, and you're golden. You change the CUP permit, something to the sign on, and after the date of the DEP, it's golden. Then I'll do a construction permit, and they're home free with the amendment.
Thank you. Any discussion on the board for the redesignation of the district requested by Stantec, Mr. Promotion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the shoreline zoning district scheme designation, raise your hand. It's unanimous. All right, it's passed. The second issue is Maine DG Holding LLC conditional use permit application. This is the Long Road, what we refer to as the Long Road Energy application. The applicant has asked that we essentially reapprove the application because of, again, the timing of the Maine DEP acceptance of the ordinance change. As you heard, the CEO made some suggestions. I think we can get that to that comment session. So I would make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit application for a 54-page document. With the conditions stated therein. Period. Anyone second it? Mr. Sanborn seconds it. Any discussion?
Will we make written comments and address the question or suggestion that was just comments on if there is no written comments if we want?
Yeah, well, we can do whatever we want.
No discussion to a ratification of that, no voting on that.
Yeah, so what, say again what the location was?
To change it from what it is to construct. Are you writing it down?
Yeah, you said to construct a photovoltaic array on map 6.
Camera array on lot 1, map 6.
But where in the application is it, you say?
Pardon?
Where in the application should that go?
On the second page, first page, right at the bottom, question 11, and ask for a specific item from Article 6. Yeah.
Okay, so it says list the use for which a conditional use permit is sought. Please refer to Article 6, District Regulations. The proposed use must be specifically listed as a conditional use in the district which it is located. That's a business use in a rural zoning district.
Article 6 is land use, and it is Part B, Part C. Part B are the items that the CEO can permit, Part C are the items that the planning board can permit. So in item C, we have nothing about solar farms, but that's pretty close. We've been flying by the seat of our pants for 8 months.
Thanks.
Page 21.
What zoning district is this project in? What zoning district is the project in?
It's in rural.
Why is your sense that a business, why is your sense that the general business, use of their business, constructing solar farms is inadequate under that question 11 with that?
We have not in our ordinance solar farm.
So we have a general business, and that is their business. So I think it clarifies, helps to clarify that business is a category in the rural district, and that constructing the solar panels and maintaining them is their business. So I don't think it's inadequate, but I hear you asking for more specificity. Right?
It's the planning board makes a decision.
What's your thought?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I don't have any problem including the construction of a photo.
Because of building.
Go ahead. So, I mean, I don't have any problem with that because it's not, nothing changes the need. It just provides some more specificity. Chad, do you have any concern with adding that?
I don't have any concern with that.
Okay, so let's break down the words.
Part of the motivation is by changing wording in question 11, referring to Article 6, will give us a motivation to be able to define it, redate it, and resubmit it.
So you say the construction of a
Voltaic?
Photovoltaic.
Photovoltaic,
how do you spell that?
PHOTOBOLTAIC, solar panel array. On lot 1, map 6.
Chad, there's a photovoltaic solar panel array. Describe the project that you're doing.
It really is a solar generator, photovoltaic, generator, electric generator, so it's really the appropriate term for that.
There's two types of solar panel collectors, so think photovoltaic will pinpoint to exactly what it is.
I guess my question is, what is the value or benefit of having this specific vehicle?
We haven't decided that yet. We're just trying to figure out what the words are, and we can decide if this makes sense. As a board.
Yeah. I don't think it's required because it's general business, but
So, I mean, I guess the question for the board is, do we find reason to modify the existing language to include a specific use of a photovoltaic to generate facility or solar panel array?
I would like to see Wes and this gentleman come up with a phrase that they're both happy with, that we can add in and work on.
Yeah, well, we could just not add anything, just not do that.
Or that we added this special living for the CEO. And,
Yeah.
But come up with a phrase that everyone's happy with. I think that's what I like to see happen.
So what I have right now is, I have this open. I have including but not limited to the construction of a photovoltaic blank on lot 1, not 6. So the only question I think we have is what's the blank? Is it solar panel array or is it generating facility? I'll state for the record, I don't believe this changes the CUP at all, but I don't see how it's problematic either. So if it's helpful for the CEO, then I'm okay with it.
I'll defer to you.
I don't think it changes the CUP at all. All the talk and all the examination was done on the land and what's being done to construct and rep these items. And that's what my construction permit's gonna be on too.
Yeah, you want to go, so are you okay with generation facility instead of,
Okay.
you're okay with, okay, so I'm gonna add, yeah, this is probably correct, in the text, including, but not limited to the construction and operation of a photovoltaic generation facility on map 6, lot 1 and 34. So that's not within the 2 lots. Right. With that change, can we have a vote on the CUP? All those in favor, raise your hand. This one's a little bit different because we have to sign it. Now what I'm going to do is, what's today's date? 5/13/21. I'm just going to sign the same document again. Does everybody else put their John and Jane Hancock on that? Sure.
That could have been adopted.
Alright, so Chad, what I'll do is tomorrow, I will scan this in and send you, shoreline zoning, I put approved, the date, and my initials.
Perfect.
I don't think it's something we need to sign. And then this, we have the signatures, and I'll send you a complete copy of that tomorrow.
Yeah, and, I'll get a hold of Vicky out of Idaho and do the construction permit by email.
Yeah, that was the third part, is the applicant asked just to make sure that there was no other known impediments to getting the permit issued.
Okay.
All right, excellent. So, thank you, everybody, and apologize, but it was maybe it's me, my mistake, but, glad we could get this resolved for you.
No problem, thank you.
And, I'll defer the, president or the chair back to Jeff.
Okay, so, Glendale Solar. So, where we are, we've been through the site visit, we've been through a public hearing, and we were on the verge of looking at conditions.
Sounds great.
Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, Matt Clifford just asked that I provide any changes that may have happened through the DEP process. So this is a clean version of the sheet and the next sheet over. You'll see a red realignment. This is where it was, and the black is all where it is. So
Okay,
we just shifted it to make the Army Corps happy with the crossing location.
and information on the four values. So the top sheet is,
It's the clean version of that, and then the red on the second sheet is where it was previously.
okay, very good. Is there anybody else out there who wants to see this?
I have a few extras, so.
So we did, email you the conditions, and they closely follow the conditions on the Longwood project. Do you want me to read them out as we go along and talk about this, or do we want to, okay, I'm gonna read it out, if you don't mind. If there's anything else you'd like to present, and I'm going to do that. Okay. The conditional use permit shall apply to the leasehold interest obtained by the applicant, West Baldwin Solar Station LLC, and any successor interest to the leasehold interest and or project the applicant on map 12, lot 15B and 14A, which shall not be less than the project area identified by the applicant's submissions.
So, first question is that the correct map and lot number?
Let me check my home documents here. Yep, 12, lot 13B and 14A. So 13B is the FD's parcel that resides in Baldwin, 14A is the Richard and Sarah Day parcel.
And do you, West Baldwin Solar Station LLC has a lease interest, it's a lease interest?
Correct. And that's been provided by the title excerpt from the Site Location and Development Act application and the Site Development Site Location and Development Act application package that's provided. I don't blame you for having a site full of excerpt for it, it's as good as a document for sure.
Okay, no problem.
I don't have any questions on item number one. Yeah, no, I just think it's already, is this being recorded?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, I flipped the, or Dwight flipped the switch,
all right, good.
so, yes. We assume it's being recorded.
To do cameras, today's the trial period, so.
Okay,
Well, for the record, then, I'm Rick Longborn from Fussin O'Neill, the civil engineer on the project, and then with me today is Shane Foley, the principal from Glendale LLC, West Baldwin Solar Station LLC, Stephen Berg, who's the director of development for both entities, Eric Van who is a development analyst, and Colin Sanders, who is just development analyst in training.
good.
And
So, then, My apologies also. I'm Joe Pierce. Who are you again?
Maybe today.
That's the standpoint.
Right.
I think that was the report, so.
No, that's good. The applicant, condition number 2, the applicant shall maintain strict compliance with the information submitted to the board on November 24, 2020. Baldwin Conditional Use Application PDF, as amended and expanded through submissions dated as follows, and I will not read all of them because there are a lot of letters and numbers, but not a lot of vowels.
And the only addition to that I'm aware of is the WBSS Overall Plan 2021-05-12 PDF, which is the document that was handed out today.
You could also just say, any changes that come from the DEP in the final analysis here. But this is pretty much just satisfied in the Army Corps, so it'll be that and all the supporting plan sheets.
Yeah, and I think that always drives the question of if the Army Corps requires material changes, you have to come back.
Yeah.
So, that's why we put it in, it's kind of stasis at this point. Whatever we approve, whatever you have in front of us is what we approve. If the Army Corps says you gotta knock this off or that off, you gotta come back and just modify it.
This is the big nut, this is the one that they wanted to change, so. This modification, that was the last big revision.
You've been through the novel, in other words. Yeah, okay.
It was small, too, so.
Any material deviation from the information submitted must be approved by the board, including but not limited to the construction plans submitted by the applicant. So that we're clear on that. The applicant shall conduct quarterly inspections of the solar panel array consistent with the applicant's submission, and A, replace any broken or damaged panels in a timely manner. B, provide notice to the town of number of broken or damaged panels. And C, provide confirmation to the town that the issue has been resolved.
Could I just ask, do you really feel it's necessary to notice the town on broken panels and repair? It doesn't happen particularly often, but that might be a difficult, minute thing for an asset manager to track over a period of decades.
Does anybody object to taking that out?
I'd like to see what website says, like. Do you have anything to say about that? Do you have anything to say about what you just mentioned?
I have something to say about the ecology of the area.
About the broken channel reporting to the town? You think
Yeah.
So, he just had said something about the stipulation that any panel that got broken needs to be reported to the town. Do you know what you're saying?
I don't recall anything like that.
Okay, so, it's all set, I guess.
You all set? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing I'm, going back to is we did this for the other company and what it was just a notice provision that it, a couple hundred panels were destroyed. I mean, that's kind of the concern is that confirmation that they're fixing the panels as they're broken, they're not sitting out there. It was kind of my recollection of it was kind of everybody keeps telling us they never break, and it's very rare, and it's one or two a year for, some like structural integrity problem, it really doesn't happen very often, so it doesn't seem like that burdensome, it's kind of.
Well, I think was what we heard before, Aiden, or Rick, somebody, typically in a year, how many panels break?
We prefer Aiden on that.
Yeah, I would maybe say, I think I answered this in Hiram. Let me do the math. I had a portfolio for 2 years of 75,000 modules, and think over a 2-year period, we had, probably 30 breaks at different sites. The majority of them were caused by, two wind events within a very short period, which led to the modules loosening. So it was a pattern. In that 30, most of them were associated with a pattern. Just what I'm curious, what I'd rather not have is a minute obligation. And in theory, there's going to be 50,000 panels here. If one broke, the asset manager could A, miss this, and be non-compliant with the permit, and that would seem a pretty minute thing. I like from start to finish, I like to design and plan a project that's easy to build and operate robustly. I just don't want to walk in with a permit condition that's easy to miss for the asset manager that perhaps isn't, you know, I don't know how important it could be to tell the town that there's one broken panel and we fixed it last week.
I get your point, and I wonder if we could put something like, if more than 10% of the panels break in any year period.
That would be a huge number. If 1% would be a huge number.
You read my mind, but I think having because it seems like the concern is that if a bunch of them break, that kind of causes maybe damage or something. I don't think it does in most cases, but that's the concern, right? If 50 panels break or 100 panels break,
Yeah.
and we're just leaving it. One, no asset manager in their right mind if there is 100 panels broken more than, you know, let's get it fixed. But our main concern is just like if one panel breaks, it's in the winter, they fix it the next month, they're worried about fixing it and getting out there. And then we just split and whoever the owner is forgets to technically be non-compliant, you know, and that's just a little burdensome and kind of, I don't know what the right word is. But I think like 100, you know, if it's 200 panels break, then that's a red dinger that goes off and says, you know.
So I think if you look on the web, you can see pictures of disasters. And of course, if you're looking on the web for pictures of disasters, you get right panicked. Okay? And so I think that's what we're concerned about. That's what I understood the concern was when we went through this before. Do any of you have an objection of putting a limit on this so that he doesn't have to report, yeah, one panel broke? I mean, can we say 5% of the panels, or 5% of the panels break? It has to be reported to the town office, and it has to be, reported when they're repaired. Does that sound reasonable?
Is there anyone else that has to know that if 10 panels broke? Is there any point that like the DEP or something needs to be notified?
No, there is currently in the legislature there's a proposal that they have to be recycled. Yep. So generally, whenever the law is at the time will be followed, and I don't know what reporting obligation goes with that. But no. It's just the most commonly used solar panels, which ones we tend to use. They don't incorporate hazardous material. They're not reactive. It's glass, encapsulated in glass, and sometimes usually in aluminum frame. So it's non-reactive material. It's not a lot different to a broken window in a car or a home in terms of its
Obviously.
The other way to think about it is like, if you had a variety store, let's say, and the glass window in the front panel broke, they would want to fix that as soon as possible. You know, they're not trying to leave that open. And it's the same concept with the solar. You know, if one panel breaks, try to try as fast as possible to get fixed. It's not like you're leaving that linger.
I might suggest 50, 100, something like that would be a lot.
And I think we're going to 50,000 panels, so
That's more than 10%.
So
Well, yeah, you can break it to greater than 50 panels at once.
we'll compromise with you. You said 5%, we'll do 0.1.
So board, how are you proposing to change the board?
I was writing this out here, I'll give you the start. If more than 50 panels break in the course of the year, it must be reported to the town office, to the code enforcement officer.
I mean, I still like it the way it is, which is D changing to, provide notice to the town, of the broken and damaged panels, if it's in excess of 50 over some period of time.
A year.
So,
50 a year?
like you said, would you say 75,000 panels, we had 30 that broke down in that, within a year, was that an act or?
It was about a 2-year period, and about 20 of them were one particular project, one wind event.
Okay, so just D gets, revised, C stays the same.
So just to clarify, that if 50 panels break in a calendar year,
Well, that's where I was going. So I think some clarity around in a general period, because it's talking about quarterly inspection.
I'm sorry, I can't understand.
If the condition itself requires a quarterly inspection, and we're talking about modifying the noticing requirement if a certain number of panels break in an annual period.
Yes,
So I think we should define whether that's a rolling 12-month period, like any rolling 12-month period, it goes calendar to calendar. But we're asking, we have a quarterly inspection, but we're talking about an annual period of reporting. So I think we should make clear what that requirement is.
Why don't we say, if 50 or more panels break in a 4 consecutive quarter period?
Yeah. And it's a rolling 12, so
Right.
I think that's clear.
yep, great.
And I always have a concern about consistency, but we'll proceed.
Which part?
I'm not.
Is the right step out of line?
Say again?
was I not supposed to talk?
No. It's a language issue. All right, you good on 4?
Yep, okay. You guys are okay with it? Good. The applicant shall continue to have remote monitoring consistent with the applicant's submission throughout the life of the project. The applicant will provide relevant information about any batteries on site to the bulb inquired chief.
Are the batteries the only, and so what this is just to let the fire people know what's up there. So if we have a fire, they know what to expect when they're, approaching your facility. So, in the long road project, the only thing that we thought was potentially hazardous was the batteries.
We maybe say, the applicant needs to provide SDSs for anything that they bring on the site. Like a safety data sheet.
Yeah.
Everything has a safety data sheet.
Yeah, is that, I don't know if that's too broad, like that, I don't know, I don't know.
My limit is those, panels, inverters, and your put battery storage allocated space, so at the time when that's probably installing batteries, so it's not really a concern, but the major components, I don't think we want, fasteners and things like that.
No, but anything that would have a material safety data sheet of some sort,
You could just limit it to the, the equipment itself, not like wires and all that.
certain places I go in my profession, I have to provide that to the person. Just so they have record and they can do what they want with it, but,
And they know what to put on a fire and what not to.
yeah.
Important stuff.
Next question.
Yeah, well, it's more of a comment. I think you could improve this condition by asking the applicant, because this is customary anyway, it's gonna happen, asking the applicant to provide fire department training. That's pretty common for a large solar project. And, so as far as MSDS, we feel a little bit burdensome, but if the fire chief asks the construction company for it during that training, that's part of the out-of-bill package, so that would be easy to provide. You might ask for training, an orientation session. That's very common.
David, you wanna tell us what we're asking for?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds here.
The essential advice is that there's usually not a life safety matter. In the case of any electrical fire, it's very unusual that there be a life safety matter, so our fire department's advice is to observe. And if, the other thing, people could be, could have trip and fall, heart attack, something of that nature, so usually a lot of the fire department training is how to get around the site.
So, 6, the applicant, here's a suggested item. The applicant will provide relevant information about any batteries on site to the Baldwin Fire Chief, provide on-site training to the Baldwin Fire Department regarding the project, and provide any information, any relevant information and documentation requested by the fire chief.
Okay, is there any,
I think so. I had orientation and training, and I know, but I don't think that's a material change.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking, I had to see why, training is more substantive, so I should do that. Applicants good with that?
yep,
Okay.
Definitely have a sidebar, but the training and orientation, MSDS, if asked, we intend that would apply to the entire project, not just batteries. That you're.
Yeah, I mean, I think the training, the concept of the training is to tell them what to be afraid of, and what to be cautious of, and what your expectations are of them. If you tell them don't come on site when there's a fire, just make sure it's contained, I think they can do that, if there's no safety or health issue.
I think it's also though, you look at it on plan, we were talking about this with Jenner, sometimes you look at something on a plan and then you get out to the field and you're like, it's just completely different. So an orientation so that they actually drive the loop.
Right.
Around, and they understand where the kind of one lane, and then there's a place where you can kind of pull around.
Right.
Really understanding where that is on the site and just that kind of broader orientation would be helpful so that they're just like, we know that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're looking for. It's your equipment out there, so I think it behooves you to train them as much as possible. For us, it's just to make sure you doesn't infringe on the person next to you, or whether it be like chemicals or whatever. So.
okay, we're good with that. Number 6, as amended. Number 7, any lighting installed by the applicant within the leasehold interest shall be pointed downward and inward to the project, and the total wattage shall not exceed 3,000 watt equivalent. Okay?
And we can increase that, because that was on Long Road, which is a small project, so.
We just like our dark here in Baldwin. That's what I think.
I think in talking with, the applicant, the locations that you may have light would be solitary, light maybe at the inverter stations, the substation, and then at the doors to the storage facility.
So not very much.
Not gonna be, this is not gonna be like, showing peak on a Friday.
Good.
I think they would be operated too. I don't want to do it operated. I don't want to do it operated automatically. They would be switch operated.
Okay.
Oh,
that's good.
Are you comfortable, Rick, that 3,000 would be sufficient for something like the substation?
120, 120.
Okay, so I'm telling you utilities, telling you utilities, full access, so, I mean,
Yeah,
it's talking.
Your 9 watt LED is actually 60 watt equivalent.
Still, even at 3,000, I think 50 light bulbs. So,
I doubt anybody's gonna be out there checking between 3,500 and 3,000.
yeah, I don't think that should be sufficient, again, because they're not gonna do it all over the place. It's gonna be a very distinct location.
Okay. Good. Number 8, the applicant will install a sign on the entrance gate and fencing on each of the other 3 sides of the project, providing contact info for the applicant, including a telephone number, to allow members of the public to contact applicant if the need arises. No problem. Number 9, if the applicant is notified that the project causes unreasonable radio frequency interference to any currently licensed service, all of which are identified on attachment 1 of these conditions, then the applicant shall work collaboratively with the affected holder of the licensed service on a plan to mitigate the unreasonable interference. If a mutually agreed resolution cannot be reached within 30 days, then the applicant or the complaining holder of the licensed service shall have the opportunity to submit the plan to the board for resolution and possible additional conditions.
This, sounds like me.
Yeah, the lawyer would have some problem.
This was because we do have some ham radio operators in town, and everybody assured us that these projects will have no interference whatsoever. But to protect those ham radio operators, we put this in, and we try to make it as, it's gotta be a material, unreasonable interference. It's gotta be something serious. It's not something that somebody can just make up. So, and we did the resolution to the board so that the board can resolve whatever the issue is. And we don't foresee this ever happening, but we thought it was a nice balance between the rights of the ham radio operators and your right to operate. I guess I should stop talking too much.
Nobody's here.
It is a big issue.
No,
It's very,
it's big.
If nobody's sure, you missed my action number 8.
Oh, go back to 8.
What do I do?
Yeah, would request that you allow us, to nominate a representative and operations and maintenance contractor rather than, the applicant. The applicant is West Baldwin Solar Station LLC. Can change hands over the life of the project.
Sure.
Likely. And, if the owner of the project is BlackRock, they've hired a electrical contractor in Portland to do their operations and maintenance, I think it would be better for everybody if they can nominate an O&M contractor for the point of contact.
That's right.
Not just be trying to call somebody in New York off of BlackRock who really isn't able to be responsive to, a tree falls on a fence. That's something the O&M contractor really, so just if we could nominate a representative.
That's it, after the applicant, after both references to applicant, I propose adding or authorized designee. So, info for the applicant or authorized designee, and then, to allow the members of the public to contact the applicant or authorized designee if the need arises.
that seems reasonable.
I mean, this is just so people have some comfort that they can call.
Yeah, just a more practical thing, just wouldn't, you know, as far as our commitment is to the letter and the spirit of the permit, so that's why we just want to get the letters right too. Like, it says 3,000 lots, we're not going to install 3,100 and hope nobody notices we're going to install 3,000. So it matters, we're going to, this is, you know, the guidance document for the rest of the project installation.
They got 8, 9,
Yeah, 9, I just, you know, I learned that I rush things too often, so I'm trying to pause, make sure anybody wants to say anything, they get a chance. The applicant is notified that the project causes an, oh, 9, we did that, okay. 10, the applicant shall submit to the board the final documentation with the landowner that identifies the specific area of the leasehold interest acquired prior to commencing the project. Such documentation shall be added to the CDP document. I think we just done that.
Is your lease finalized?
It is, there's a provision in it where the areas can be amended, so if we did that, we will record the amended lease area and we can submit that.
Awesome. Because on Long Road, they hadn't finalized their leasehold yet. They were still trying to figure out how much buffer they needed. So at the time they did the permit, we needed to have some buffer for.
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys are about the same now.
Well, yeah, our methodology is different. We had a final and complete lease, but there's an adjustment mechanism.
Okay. You guys are not.
Go ahead.
I was scared so long, just talking around.
So, everybody else good with that?
Specifically, 2 leases, by the way, I just said we two.
Yep. Yep.
So it should say landowner, just to be 100%. These will interest.
Yep, yeah, sort of all the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, number, you know, actually, I'm looking at this map and I'm not sure that it immediately leaps out at me what the boundary of your leasehold interest is. It this sort of wiggly dark line around the outside and then places it straight?
Pretty close to the tree line. I believe I have a copy of the lease provided to you guys.
Yeah, I think they did.
Rick Otto,
Okay.
for fairness.
Yeah, okay, you did, yeah. No, I just wanted to double check.
And it's also one of the enumerated documents. Number
Yeah.
3.
Yep,
It's an exhibit with a red
yes,
boundary in it.
yep,
It's not attached, so. And that'll, again, as Aiden said, they solidify that agreement. It's essentially to the boundary of the stream, and then along the road access and everything northeast of that, and then the big parcel entirely. So,
okay. Number 11, the applicant shall maintain compliance with Maine DEP requirements as amended for the applicant to carry a bond for the full value of decommissioning and removing the project as a permanent condition.
I think I commented that we haven't finalized exactly what our decommissioning obligation is. We've at least proposed to Maine DEP that the bond be put in place by year 15 of the project operating life. So we would look to see symmetry with whatever we end up with in our DEP permit. The idea being that the initial project value will be over $20 million as a construction cost, and nobody's going to leave that leave that inoperable immediately. So
I think part of our, to that point, is that we have a 20-year PPA with CMP, power purchase agreement. So they're going to be contractually obligated to be providing power. So the likelihood of decommissioning really before year 20 is pretty small.
we can't say we're DEP is going to come down, because they haven't given us their draft conditions yet. But, we at least, we got, let's say DEP says we can partially fund that obligation over the first 15 years, or we put in place at year 10, and we carry an insurance policy. These are all things we've talked about at various times with DEP. We just would like to have the same conditions. That way, we haven't done a lot of work at DEP to get something that's satisfactory, and then find that there's a more onerous condition in the municipal permits. In every instance, DEP is going to be satisfied with the creditworthiness and the ability of the applicant to maintain the facility and to decommission it. They're not going to do anything risky. But carrying bonds or cash security for decades when it's just plainly not necessary, that's expensive, and we're trying to avoid that.
So the only person that really likes that is the guy who got
I don't know, guys, that actually, I think this condition reads that is in agreement with what you're saying. It says to be in compliance with the DEP requirements, so.
But it seems to specify what the DEP's requirement's going to be. That may very well be correct, but just in case we get some relaxation, we would just like to match that relaxation standard.
It says that you would follow the DEP requirement, and as it is amended, you're following it.
But he's saying they may not require a bond.
No, they'll require it, they just might not require it on day one.
I guess we just want the language to be whatever it ends up. So right now, it's year 15, they come back and say it's year 12, or they say it's year 17. We just don't want what we agree on now, because of what we think it's going to be. If it changes, then having to come back here, if we can set it up in a way that it's just whatever is agreed upon within DEP is good.
Well, so it's going to be a bond, right? Like, you're going to have to set up a bond at some juncture.
Probably, you always have the option of providing cash, and DEP in prior projects has accepted corporate guarantees. So they have in the past accepted alternates to bonds. But I think I have a solution here. I don't know if you like it, but the applicant shall maintain compliance with the main DEP requirements regarding decommissioning. And in any event, will post decommissioning assurance with main DEP or another, could be the town, but with main DEP by the end of the 15th operating year. So that way, which isn't likely, if DEP relaxes their standards vis-a-vis their application, you'll notice there's a decommissioning surety in place at year 15. Otherwise, we match DEP.
Yeah, so the problem for me is that we talked a lot about this in prior large projects, and the nice, the elegant way that this is dealt with is it's basically saying, you know, we're not experts in this stuff, but we assume the main DEP is doing the right thing. And, you know, our understanding is they require a bond.
I think in the language it actually says surety and a number of other things as well. It might not offer a letter of credit or corporate guarantee, but.
Yeah, we're going down. So now what you guys are telling us is it's not quite as easy, you know, it's like we may not want to rely on the same DEP because we may not be comfortable with the corporate guarantee or some other definition. And so it started making a little concern that we're doing it this way, that maybe DEP is not being strict about it. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
I don't think at all that main DEP is not being strict about it. But I think Stefan's quite correct. There's a number of compliance routes that main DEP has the ability to accept. And I think if we remove the specificity of what Maine DEP is accepting here, I think it's perfect. And if you've any concerns over what the Maine DEP accepts, you could also establish a minimum condition.
Right, that's what we're trying to avoid, because we don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
To be blunt.
Yeah, I would say these are all 20-year projects, the lifespan is 30 to 40 years. You're really safe territory requiring applicants to post decommissioning assurance by year 15, year 10 maybe. Before that, I think it's just it's a waste of economic resources.
What's
Like,
So I think that the word that agency is assurance. So whatever the NDEP assurance is what would be acceptable. I think what we're getting caught up on is right now it says bond. And so if Maine DEP accepts a surety bond, or a surety bond, they accept a letter of credit, or it's not the word bond, then technically this is out of whack.
I guess what's difficult for me in understanding this, I don't know what decommissioning costs. You know, and so I don't know if we're talking about $10 or $10 million. I have no clue. And so I don't know how to approach the subject. You know, I don't know what the insurance costs. I don't know what bond costs. I don't know what's reasonable.
it is an application material. I don't know off the top of my head remember the number. I would suspect it's in the several hundreds of thousands, not a million.
It's usually between two. It can anywhere from 1.5.
You have to speak up.
Anywhere from 1.5% to 3% of the project cost. So as they were saying, call it $200,000 less than that.
But it is in the application materials. I think it's certainly in the state applications.
Yeah, in section 29 of the, SLOTA application, that's a giant homework looking thing.
And for example, for a large project in Stanford owned by NextEra, the DEP does not require any surety other than the fact that they believe the owner company to be creditworthy. And we don't think that's realistic.
You guys aren't planning on owning it, you're planning on flipping it to somebody else, because that makes sense.
Another investor will come in, yes.
So I don't know if you're familiar with NextEra, but I think like a year or two ago, their valuation was more than ExxonMobil. So that's kind of what we're talking about in terms of creditworthy. Maine DEP looked at them and said, from a corporate perspective, we're pretty sure they're going to be around.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want a minimum standard, I think that would be fine because Maine DEP is thorough and professional here. But if you ever worry about their minimum standard, or they're not, you could easily throw something in here. It's not liability. I'd say your minimum standard here could be interpreted to be a bond. Even if Maine DEP accepted some alternate surety or that bond, I'd certainly like it to be clear that it's the bond, we're not required to be posted for 5 years or 10 years, that the town would trust that. Because otherwise, we'd be carrying, we have different decommissioning obligations to two different AHJs.
I understand what they're saying about, and I see that they're not, I mean, who's going to strand that much equipment and walk away? I don't
What if it doesn't work? Like, what if the cameras don't work? After a year, they just don't work.
Well, I also,
Not that it's gonna happen.
I've done quite a bit of thinking about solar electric projects, as you may imagine. And I do wonder, to some extent, what businesses is of ours if somebody doesn't want to clean up. If they just want to leave the equipment there standing. Why should we be so?
Yeah, I think it's the same reason we say for quarries. In a quarry, you have to revegetate and it's the use doesn't damage the overall land aspects of the town.
Okay,
So I think that's why, and, you know, there still are people out there who believe that these panels are not 100% safe, so, you know, if they're there for 100 years, with something bad happen, I don't know.
so I can see that the state DEP also does not want to have the panels just sit there forever. And the state DEP doesn't want to have quarries that have been mined out sit there forever. I think I'm willing to put my faith in the state chasing after this for us. We don't have the choices to take that. Yes.
I think you can get a pretty good compromise, maybe at 10 years, they have to provide bonds to the town, for whatever the cost of decommissioning is at that point.
A bond or insurance.
I'd say a bond, after 10 years, a bond to the town, saying that after 10 years, they find out what the decommissioning cost is, and then you can get a bond to satisfy that for the rest of the project before it's decommissioned.
If we've already provided a bond, or we do provide a bond to Maine DEP, would that be satisfactory?
I don't know, because the town involvement is really not, we're not, I guess somebody else would have to explain, what would the DEP say if something happened and it didn't get decommissioned, the DEP would be responsible? I don't believe they have responsible liability to clean up a mess that.
Well, that's what the bonds for, they would use that to do the decommissioning, if they decided they gonna.
But I told you, the question is,
The Cuba, DEP would, and then the thing broke apart, operation was.
so what would make the difference if they gave the bond to DEP or give it to the town?
Because DEP is gonna require decommissioning. And I think what they're trying to avoid is to have it held in two amounts held in two different places, and it's different duration, for the same thing.
So what you're saying is DEP would not allow the town hall to hold the bond?
No, they would, one or the other would be preferable.
Yeah. And the DEP would accept that. They told us that if the applicant has to provide a decommissioning bond to the town, the DEP will waive their requirements. And then the DEP, this was directed to Rick, but I got the impression they chuckled. They said, have at it. It's not fun to monitor all these bonds. We're willing to do it. If the towns want to do it, that's fine with them. So I think that the DEP's advice would be to let them do it. But if the town wants to administer the bond, then they would allow that to happen. This project would be a little bit unusual in that the project's in two towns. So, but nonetheless, I think that's easily governed.
Yeah, my advice is if you look at the state name list, because in 10 years, you're gonna have to go down to the historical society and dig out the records. I can guarantee you, it's hard to find records, and with people changing out here in the town office, these are something someone else, with a long institutional integrity, keeping track of.
You remind me, Bob, that we asked Mayetta to post a bond. And early on in my career on the planning board, one of the things that I did was call the bank to find out if they still had a bond. I mean, it was like we're sitting around one night and nobody came in to see us. And we went, oh, did we ever ask Mayetta for their bond? And, you know, we hadn't asked in 5 years, and of course, Mayetta didn't have a bond. So I take your point very well, that we are not equipped to monitor bonds.
I'll read once, and the applicant shall maintain compliance with Maine DEP decommissioning requirements as amended, including but not limited to demonstrating financial assurance in the form of a performance bond, surety, bond, irrevocable letter of credit, or other form of financial assurance acceptable to the main DEP of the permit condition.
They have that, so.
Aiden says great.
It works.
I think it says the same thing as the other one, confusing kind of.
You guys have to do this?
Yeah, I just pulled the decommissioning language from the bill that's language that's in the statute.
All right.
Okay? Okay. On to number 12. When the project has been decommissioned to the satisfaction of the main DEP, this conditional use permit shall expire. Good with Ed, good with the board. Do we have anything else to look at on this conditional use permit?
The standard condition.
The standard condition. Did you get a copy of our standard
Yep,
condition?
they were stapled, not stapled, part of the PDF.
So you're okay with that?
We are, just as a general point, just want to remind you, you will see other projects in the future that don't have to get DEP permits. We do, Long Road do, but we're not, other projects, small projects, you may have to revisit that.
Yeah, we actually go through the process of hiring an expert to tell us what the decommission process is. That's why we kept taking it to DEP, because we didn't want to go through that. And as Bob said, like trying to maintain compliance with.
You can have, not just this type of project, but other types of projects where there's that, you can have a lot of lines.
Exactly.
Yeah. Under 20 acres, is it? Is it 20 acres?
20 acres, yeah.
That's about the number. Yeah.
There's a number of 19.9 acre projects going around.
Yeah.
And then we took the map from Long Road to identify where the current Camarillo operators were. That's just so somebody doesn't move into, the harm, if they move right next door into harm, that's kind of their fault. They move to the.
Well, Steve Estes turned their next door neighborhood into a development.
Yeah.
You can't, 10 operators.
That'd be a funny study, wouldn't it? Especially with Steve. So, I don't think there's any, so are we sure that number 2 has all the documents in it? Is that everything you guys have provided to us?
Today, with the one that we take today.
We just added, yes.
Is the original conditional use permit submission, is that one of the?
I think it's what we talked about on November 24th, 2020, and then, the WDFS narrative revision.
Yeah.
One is the revised version of that, that you
Yeah.
requested,
Okay.
and I basically walk through everything on the CUP 2020.
Where is the, Florida application here?
They do have a Florida application, that's not,
I don't think it's on the list.
both the Site Location and Development Act permits and Natural Resource Protection Act permits are, on file as you go through. And they'll be available at DEP on request whenever.
So I just put in the Florida and NRTA, is that right? No?
Yep.
Submission.
Otherwise, we'd wait for a while, so. So that kind of handy.
Yeah. And then is the PowerPoint presentation in here?
No, it's not.
Okay, so the PowerPoint presentation,
That would have been dated 4/22/2021. That was the last one.
4/22/21?
Okay.
Okay. I've got nothing else.
That is the application that was signed by Aiden. I don't know. It's got one link for his, signature. The one, so yeah, I'm just checking if we're all set.
I think so.
Are we ready to, does anybody have a motion to make at this point? got a motion, we have a second
What's the most?
to, approve the conditional use permit, for West Baldwin Solar Station LLC as submitted,
With the conditions.
with the conditions that, as compiled, yes.
Take a pause here, make sure we got everything. Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
Anybody?
Okay.
You're not voting? No, okay. So, anybody wants to say? Okay, so, all those in favor of Commissioner's permit, it is unanimously passed, the three members voting. Do we sign this?
Yeah, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to, I have to print these out what I'd like to do is have us sign the permit and then I will take the permit with me, print out these, attach them together. I usually put in the key, so in this one is the November 24, 2020 submission. I'll put that with this, just to have the key document attached. It's like a long one of 54 pages, so, and then send it to you guys. The original will be here.
If I could just say, I would really appreciate everyone's, time and, your questions. I thought they were thoughtful, and, I thought you guys did a good job of listening to our position and working to, do what made sense. And then I just thought that you guys were, good stewards for the town, so.
Appreciate that. No, your neighbors, most people don't believe that.
Thank you all very much. Only two more solar projects tonight, right? Right.
Okay. So, are we now taking up Nancy's wilderness?
Sure.
Okay, so, I have been recusing myself from Nancy's wilderness. I am, wondering if I should continue to do so, partly because Bob challenged me while I was recusing myself and made me wonder, maybe I wasn't doing my duty. And, then I was perplexed because the CEO talked in opposition to a project on my land, and I complained to selectmen that he was continuing to be CEO of the project, and I thought I should be taken off the project, and they haven't done so. So I said, well, maybe you can campaign against the project and still be on the planning board. I don't know what the rest of the planning board thinks, but I just wonder if I'm shirking my duty by recusing myself, and so I'm asking for feedback from you three.
So, I think you're supposed to recuse yourself in two situations. One is if you have some sort of financial or potential three situations. If you have some sort of financial or potential financial interest in the project. And typically the board has said if you're in a butter that could benefit from the project, you're supposed to recuse yourself. That's one situation. The second situation is if you have publicly voiced an opinion about the project before hearing the evidence, and kind of showing that you're prejudice, I guess. And then 3 would be the perception of prejudice. If you do something and everybody thinks you're prejudiced, you may have to recuse yourself because that impugns the character of the board.
And it was under that I was recusing myself.
Right. Well, and you did have a legal dispute with
Yes.
the applicant, so that, I think for me, that was the big one. We had a legal dispute with that one.
No, we no longer have a legal dispute.
Okay, right. So, yeah, I don't know what I'm thinking about whether you should. I mean, I think you should just because you've done so in the past, which indicates that you have a reason to do it. And unless you tell me that reason is no longer there, I would think you'd want to keep recusing yourself, but that's kind of a circular argument, isn't it?
Yes.
What do you guys think?
I think you need to make your own decision.
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I think you need to make your own decision from this point on. You decide what you want to do. I'll support you there.
Tracy, do you have any opinion?
I think the board needs to have integrity, behave with integrity, and maintain an appearance of integrity. So I think the situation may determine what's appropriate. And if we're in a discussion, that's different than a vote in which it could impede or harm or affect the applicant. Maybe a different scenario from a discussion about something else. So I could actually see a scenario where participation on one issue is appropriate, and you may choose to recuse on a different issue, which is not a clear answer to your question. I would like to see us always err on the side of professional and appropriate, even when we feel that's not the case at other municipal levels.
Thank you. I think that was very well put, Tracy. I think I would prefer to recuse myself, but I would ask that you would allow me to express my opinion. So with that caveat, that's what I think is the thing to do with this.
Yeah.
So you get stuck with chairing the meeting again.
That's okay. So we got a request from Nature's Wilderness to be on the agenda. I don't know much about why, other than some documents that were submitted from the Dyer, Ross's Business on Dyer, which talked about splitting off the property, splitting off some property to Jane Dunlap. And so I guess we should hear from the applicant or the person requesting this to find out what they want to do, what the request is.
May I go ahead?
Sure.
Hi, I'm Dawn. That's exactly what we're doing. It's pretty straightforward. You have this in your packet, the map showing the potential lot split. Kenneth Dunlap, who did provide a letter that was not in your packet. Can I help you?
Sure.
Just indicating what her plans are. And essentially, the only reason that we're here is because the conditional use permit requires planning board approval because this roughly 80 acres was part of the permit.
So if we're issue splotting, the two issues that I see are, this would be the third division in 5 years. So the second division to make 3 parcels in 5 years.
Can I address that?
Sure.
So if you look at that map that I just looked at a second ago, you can see that this lot is being divided,
When you say yes, what do you refer to?
where it says lot split between Dunlap.
Yeah.
It's surrounded by 2 roads, and, first statute, it's not considered a parcel of land subject to subdivision, it's already a separate lot, and it's divided by a public or private road. So this is not a subdivision issue.
Okay, so you're saying the Deacon Road, which is not on the map, but you drew it on the map. Then Marston's is the other side.
And I did have a surveyor locate it, and I brought it up to him also.
So is this a different parcel than this Dunlap bought before? It's the same parcel as she bought before?
Correct, yes, yes.
And what's this 22B, what is that? Who owns that?
I'm sorry, what are you thinking of?
The little parcel,
Who owns that property?
yeah, was that part of the big parcel?
I don't know.
It's the little, Portland, that was the first division.
And what, I guess I don't understand, what's the outline of Nature's Wilderness property?
I highlighted it, not my discussion. Like that gets them. Like that.
And it's the Deacon Road, so we previously talked about subdivision and whether or not the private way of separation, we all agreed it was. So if it's, whether it's public or private road, if 2 parcels of the property are separated by a private road, then the division of that road does not create a lot for subdivision purposes. That's my recollection of what we did. Does that make sense, Jim?
It's the same situation we dealt with Hill Land.
Exactly.
And so the roads were before 1971, so that after that, they had South Marston, east of, Beacon, separate plot model plan.
That's right. 1971 was the cutoff date, right?
Say that again?
1971 was the cutoff date, is that right?
I think that was established when you deal with Plank Road and the Lair Road over there on Purcell property.
Yeah.
So this is the exact same situation. Whereas before, when they, tried to give it to Dave Dunlap, we were calling it, we were getting a subdivision, but he turned out an LLC was not have relevance, so it could be done with rock. Now they're bringing up again, now that Ekron has passed away and there's desire for the division of land and the camp is trying to be told when they need the land to settle it. So the roads divide that land clearly to a separate plot. So it's simple.
Okay. Any questions from the board about the subdivision issue?
That sounds consistent with previous discussion.
It does.
Is there an issue with, if we move on, is there an issue with this 162?
Yeah. That's the second issue, yeah. And members of the public who've seen it, does that look correct in terms of where the Deacon Road is and all that? Like,
I challenge the existence of the Deacon.
yeah, that was my thought too. I'm trying to figure out, there's some history there on the Deacon Road. I don't know what it is.
So I think, actually, I think you ought to go out and look at it. Because, the Deacon's Road through the swamp, it's where it says Pigeon Brook, you see E-O-N Brook. And there's kind of a shaded area in there. In the 1990s, it was very fashionable to take the pickup truck and go find the swamp and drive through. And, I last walked through there in probably, 94, 95, and the water was already flowing over where the road had been. The culverts were gone, there was no road. And there has not been a road there for physical road, where the Deacon's Road was. There has not been a road there for over 20 years. 25 years maybe. I walked that road for 60 years. So I've seen the deterioration, and I find it hard to follow the road when it doesn't exist.
Yeah, so I guess that's the question, is for the purpose of splitting it up for the subdivision issue, what obligation does the applicant have to establish the existence of the stuff, we'll call it a right, I don't know exactly, it's maybe a right of way. Whatever that separation is, what's the applicant's burden of establishing what that is? I don't know.
I just have a stamped survey showing that road.
So why do you bring that up? Let's take a look at that. So it's oriented, where's 113? 113 is, down here, when we come up, and we drive into Marston's Road, and we look at the campground stuff. Okay.
So this is the Deacon Road right here. That's that little lot that was attached to me on the map. So this is the parcel that we're looking at.
So what establishes the Deacon Road?
It's been marked by the surveyor. He was able to establish your based on the meets and bounds of the surrounding views and where it's located.
Well, that's the question.
Yeah.
You're kind of skipping over the
Oh, sorry.
So where is this, you say that there's deeds that show that this right here is this?
Right, we have a licensed surveyor who certifies that it does.
Well,
I'm sorry.
yeah, okay, let's go.
Right here, the large concrete monument.
No, I know this is, okay, I know this is different, but like here, my recollection is there's no actual road. Like there's not I'm not driving down Route 113, So from Route 113 to a deer path, like somewhere in there, the Deacon Road is there. So you have this deed here. Does this deed say the Deacon Road's right there?
I think it's a combination of everything. Like when a surveyor does this, they have to do all the research of the deed and they have to go and find it on the surveyor by actually going out to the property. So it's a stamped survey, so you can assume that happened. He's not going to break his license or liability insurance otherwise.
Well, but I don't know what he's asserting. That's what I.
He's asserting that the road is located right there. That is the road.
So, all right, so yeah.
No, I just can't get that.
So I guess I'd want to talk to this shipping person to find out what.
It's not a key, like you see how.
Right, what
I
that.
think we need,
Yeah.
I think all we're asking for is the key to show that this image is a delineation of an existing road. So it's boundary line survey, boundary survey, so I get that. So even though it's no label.
Well, but I but I don't know what that means, you know, I don't know what that
The
means.
road, right? Yeah.
But that's based on the physical existence of the road.
Correct.
Like you can see this
And
road,
and the graphic is different.
and see this road you can see, that, I mean, I know that is, so then you get here, single line with these double lines, I don't know what that means.
Did he provide a key? That is, she was a bigger picture. I also think it's weird, not David,
So we still need to know what that means.
correct, but,
Yeah, because I can just see a boundary line,
Correct.
well,
well, that was my thought, is that a boundary line in it, but when we need to hear from them, we could hear from them in person or when they're in writing.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I mean, the next thing will be the middle.
But
And it's just-
this property is written verbiage saying Beacon Road is the property.
Is the boundary, yeah.
what he said that,
Because
that's
it's
what I'm
actually
saying.
from like 1921, you have to see the reference to these, just that it's a current existing.
What he said is that it's this, that's like he's going back to.
Mhm.
So you have the campground, does that say where that is exactly?
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it's a combination of the campground deed and this deed.
Well, this deed was just created,
Right.
so that's out the window because you created, you being the owner of this property, that doesn't work. So there has to be some establishment of communication, it should be over here, and then the separation's over here. I'm not saying this, I'm just, it's clearly here because of this, but
So the concrete monument at the end, it's labeled Beacon Road, and it continues on this side, yes, it teeters out down through here. This is established Beacon Road 113, same thing with Marston Road. This is a very nice road here, average to here.
right.
Okay, I get it. But there's a large concrete monument or granite monument there, it says Beacons Road. That's been there and it's dated, don't quote me on this, but it's 18 something.
It's a monument, but it's not a boundary monument. So
Well, it's something, I mean, I think it's something, like, I'm not saying.
It doesn't say South Road, it says Beacons Road.
So, where's Bernie Manette's land on that? Because, I think, I guess what I'm gonna do is challenge the accuracy of the survey unless they say that you are claiming some of Bernie Manette's land.
Well, the original 1995, the original application of Nature's Wilderness had a survey done in the original application was accompanied by a survey done in 1995.
This one.
In February of 2020, Scott Efron had a company called Survey Inc. do some survey work.
Yep.
And that survey work cut off the back part of my property and your property.
Yep.
I secured an attorney, John Bannon, who got very, very ill. And work has not been completed. But that my back property line is definitely the 2020 survey that Scott Efron had done is in conflict, total conflict with the 1995 survey that accompanied the application for the CPU.
Okay, that one, no, that's a side note, I understand, the question, okay. So,
This is the survey that was submitted with the conditional use permit. Not that, they didn't have a boundary, they did not admit to having had a boundary survey done until just now. This is the first one we've seen.
This was just done.
That's fine.
okay, and here on the original one has the Beacon Road.
What I'm challenging there is that the Beacons, if a road doesn't exist on the face of the earth, then it doesn't exist. It can,
Not necessarily, if it's in the deed of the right of way.
okay,
Maybe not, maybe
I would check the deed very thoroughly.
So,
The doubts and the views.
okay, so I think we still have a question about this line and how it was, so if you're in fact correct, that there's a road here, there's a road here, then that would separate this parcel from this parcel. So, you know, following, and this is just for the subdivision issue, following our basic approach, this would, the division of this would not create a subdivision. Following our standard approach. But we, I think I'm summarizing this correctly, we have a concern about how that line establishes, I think we need to establish better that that road exists.
Other than a certified survey showing that it exists.
Well, it doesn't provide any key as to how this was created.
I think we're saying, we hear what you're saying is that the surveyor, what you're telling us is this graphic shows Beacon Road. And we're saying, other than your attesting to that, the plan itself doesn't show us by itself without your additional comments that this marking means it's a Beacon Road. So if the surveyor, just so that I make sure that this is going to be correct for you guys, if the surveyor had drawn a line from Beacon Road to point to this, there's usually a key on a survey section, like existing road, or a deed reference, like it'll have a deed reference in the key, a letter. So there's usually that, and this certificate doesn't have that. And there's no accompanying, written document that explains. So sometimes you see a road by deed reference, and sometimes you see an existing road, and they'll actually have a different symbolism. Sure. I think that's all we're looking for, is to make sure that that is in fact, and it's what the surveyor is saying, is an existing on-site road. That's all.
Does the older deed say that this line was created by the road that had been there, that particular heritage? Because usually, if it is a road, they will say, along such and such road, such and such feet at such an angle.
I believe that that's how we will do
Okay,
it.
that would help.
I'm very confident the Camp 21 said that they still had to do this, right, to show that information. But we're not arguing that Beacon Road on this one is existing, correct? Beacon Road on this side is existing, correct? You're
Like,
acknowledging
you don't
that
even
Beacon
have to
Road.
comment that it's not part of it.
You tried on 113, you mentioned that you could direct,
Yeah.
there's an entrance that says, there's a sign that says, or a monument that says Beacon Road. I don't know if that's a road or what that is, I assume it's a road, I mean, that's a pretty good assumption. And then it goes swampy, and then something happens here, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I just don't know, this isn't enough.
So,
It usually you have a legend.
so the road that goes beyond Marston North, I don't call it north, I guess, what is that? Does that exist? Is that part of Upper Clean Road or whatever?
Upper 20 Road.
Okay. I'm just looking at it on my phone.
This is the upper Beacon Road.
Yeah.
That goes to Beacon Flint House,
Right.
which is on the campus.
Which is a proper, I mean, it's a discernible road.
Yes, yes. And has been closed.
Right.
And typically, there's just something like this that we're asking you about, that's not shown on this plan. But it is shown on that one, it has this unpaved road, property boundary.
Careful about claiming that this map is right.
Was there a problem with it?
Okay?
I'm with you on that one.
I thought you would.
Okay, so that's issue one, that we just need some additional information. I mean, I'd like this to be sourced, I'd like to know what the source of it is. Because there is, you know, you're coming in at the 24th chapter of this novel, and so, you know, the previous 23 chapters have told us that we need to be very precise about our questions and the information we need. So we need a legend and a source, provided to firm up the lack of an issue of subdivision. We're only talking about the subdivision issue. So go ahead and take that back, and just look at that.
I would say, 99.9.
I just never appreciated that any question.
Okay, so that's, everybody go back. So, it's gonna be horrible, hopefully it's again, so the next issue is that the permit was granted with the express condition that no sale of the 462 acres be made. And that, in my mind, it's abundantly, like, express is probably an understatement, because we are so concerned about a variety of alternatives. And so, if this occurred, then you would be in material violation of the CUP.
Well, it says not without planning board approval, which is why we're here.
You guys have the CUP with you, I don't bring the CUP. What page are we looking at, Dina?
Maybe it's line 165 and 67, something like that.
No, you're correct, I'm sorry, it does just say sale or lease or any conveyance portion of.
What line are you on?
10?
Page 10 or line
10. Oh, I'm sorry, no, 695.
695?
Any portion of the existing 462 lot.
Yeah.
So it's just prohibited.
Yeah. And this portion of the property was an accessory use. It was undeveloped accessory use to the campground development envelope, is that right? There's no development on this piece of property for the campground. So, what we said at the time was that if there was a request to convey any of the 462 acre lot, then you have to come back and we have to open the CUP to reconsider the terms of the CUP and essentially open it up and reconsider it. That's kind of where my head is at right now. But, I mean, I'm the only one talking, so I'll be quiet. Board, public, applicant, any comments, thoughts?
Reopen the CUP, would that be a huge project where we're already established? In my opinion, it's been a decent year with no real issues, it's been even forward and the rest of the water. So it should be a long drawn out process like we went through before, correct?
Well, there'd be a public hearing, and probably not a sidewalk, but maybe a sidewalk, but it's a public hearing at the very least. And then a consideration, I mean, I don't think I can predict what's gonna happen because I don't, we had a meeting last year where we raised some concerns about particular items. I'm sure those items will be discussed to determine the campground compliance with those. It's certainly not gonna be of the nature that it was before, 4-year odyssey, but, that's where my head is right now.
And I think that's regardless of the survey to, like,
Subdivision.
yeah,
That's a separate issue.
I mean, I think we're here anyway.
Because if the subdivision issue isn't resolved, then you have to do a subdivision permit, and that's a whole different thing. You can't convey the property. So if we were okay with it on the CUP angle, we still have to come with a subdivision if that road's not there. Because you have two issues working at the same time.
I think the language of this is pretty clear. This brings it under the 462. It's under the 462.
Well, they're already under the 462 in part-time.
Okay, so that's a separate issue, standalone.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. Yeah.
Thought, fishing it a little bit. Beacon Road, land to the west of it is also F1's land. So, land in question now to the east of it is an abutting land. Land going to the butter is exempt from subdivision.
Well, I don't think Ms. Dunlap owns any of it. I don't think Ms. Dunlap owns any property over there, does she? She would be the abutter, wouldn't she?
I'll have to think about it.
Yeah.
The fishing will be fishing.
I mean, I think you're okay on the stuff that is mentioned. I think you're okay. I just think you gotta prove that. It's the CUP issue that's more important for me. Yeah.
And I hate to bring it up, but I don't want to say it's time. Joe and I were down at the, here this weekend looking at where is this 462 acres? And, I don't think I've seen a map that shows it.
They wouldn't get it far.
And I couldn't find a word description that well described. In fact, the word description that's in there is all over the place. Let me show you something. It's a paradigm study, but it's not good. Well, this is
Now, Bob, we asked for a map of the 462, and they only gave us a diagram of the 157 or whatever the buildable lot, or building area. I think that's the project. I was just thinking maybe it's the project.
So, both parties, applicant intends to open a commercial on the property, development will, I'm looking at one on 201. Development will be contained within the portion that lies north of Marston Road, and just east of the Beacon Road. Look at the left. This development area is approximately 150 acres of the 462 acre property.
That's the development. I'm not saying that's right, I'm just saying that's the development area, not the exact part.
The development is shown in its entirety to block 2 of tax map 7, with the exception of 619. So, I haven't seen the map that shows.
You did get that one.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, is that the whole question is where is it?
Yeah, we just got to. So these go together, and that shows all the couples, so everything that they own is a little over 900 acres. But that shows everything.
Where are the corners?
So I think what happened with the number, Bob, is that David forced Gary to give him the numbers.
Right.
Gary gave him the numbers. I'm also challenging this survey for accuracy, because it should indicate that there's a boundary between this area. Yeah, a good surveyor, not a surveyor.
Maybe so you're challenging his stamp?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Why on that track? You have an engineering stamp, you have a survey stamp? No, it's not, but that's, he can do it, but I can't. That's where it's on the line, it's ridiculous.
I've been on the face of the earth out here, and standing at places on the tree.
So this is a weird map, so I see 621, I see 157, I see 76, I see 13, 41,
And 13.5. So you've got, yeah, these kind of, they go together, we don't see for that. These are the same. Right, so if you, my understanding, like, if you added that, like, what's the senior ground, so what's the 13.5, right?
The one that is 57.
Oh, that's what it is, so, yeah.
Because it goes with.
Yeah, very, very.
Where is that?
and that's 722, 460. See, that was,
It goes with the whole.
so 462 is supposed to be and that's supposed to be 462.
Right.
And so the big issue was, is if the campground is any other property, it needs to have a CUP for that property.
I don't think the campground is using any other.
Right, but they're advertising that as acres. That's always been a concern of mine. And you used to say it was Scott, talk crap. Scott got around and talk crap. But the Facebook site had 900 acres as of yesterday, and Facebook knows it. So this is an issue. No, but they're getting right into So we as the board have to decide, I think we have to submit a request to modify the CUP. And we'll have to go through the public hearing process. And we as board have to decide whether or not this acreage that is Dunlap wants to acquire is a necessary part of the primary use of the campground. That's my take on it. And the argument, I know the argument saying, well, it's 70 or 462, so you still got 390, and it's developing less than 57, so we got plenty of room. But I think it's something we gotta look at. And I think unfortunately, and what's always been this, the history is going to play into this. So people who weren't happy with my operators are gonna say, you gotta do this, it's a new permit, we have to go
I think you want to get a stamp before you can start making a decision.
I can agree with you on that, but we've always said personal property boundaries, we don't get into it. But, if there's some material reason why we should, somebody said you don't own this, then obviously, if it's 3 or 4 acres, 10 or 11 acres, that's never been something.
I've never had somebody survey right by these lines on trees.
Well, I don't know, so I don't know what that is.
I'm already determined, but I would invite the board to go out and look at it. There's a line of But I can show you a survey.
If boundary line is not the issue right now, we've never received that 362, now it's going to be 290, whatever. We've never received that.
So we're just always based on the fact that.
Well, part of the reason we didn't receive it is because there's multiple boundaries. So I don't think they want to say,
I assume this gentleman was involved in a boundary dispute?
Yeah,
Why this
yeah.
is going on? Okay.
So, all right, so why don't you try to go back and finish this back down, so the public can hear. All right. So my take at this in 906 is that, the appropriate vehicle for this is the request from Nature's Wilderness, to open their CUP to modify the, land at issue, which opens the CUP for all purposes, at least from my perspective. I think that's a board vote, so I don't want to predetermine what we open it to, but I think that's the request that needs to be made. And then we would send that through the standard CUP process. We'd have to decide whether or not to have a sidewalk. We definitely would have a public hearing, and then we'd have a consideration of additional or the same conditions. I can tell you as part of that, we're definitely going to want to know that the applicant is in compliance with the current conditions, because if you're not, then, that's obviously figuring into the conditions that we may want to put on there. It would be helpful to have a survey of that entire parcel. I don't remember the number, but you know what number it is. And then show us what's peeling off, and so what that final parcel looks like. Questions, comments? Okay. So you guys can choose whether you want to. You don't have to. You can't sell plastic copies of violation, but you certainly don't have to open up the permit if you don't want to sell property. So that's a decision you guys have to make. So is that what you guys needed to know? Okay, fairly clear forward. And at the public hearing, if people have private boundary disputes, I'm going to tell you that we don't usually get involved in private boundary disputes unless they're seriously material to the project, which so far I haven't heard anybody say that they're material to the project. But that's an issue people can bring up at the public hearing, and we'll listen and respond accordingly. Any other issues on that, or can we move on to the next item? All right.
Okay. Just some quick things because we want to get out of here. We don't want to run after 9 o'clock and after 9 o'clock. So we've got a bunch of stuff coming our way. this will come back to us. We've got a draft version of the subdivision ordinance that Bob Flint prepared some months ago, but we haven't finalized yet. And, we have to decide if we want to recommend it for a town meeting. There may be a special town meeting in June.
I'd like to make that a priority.
Okay.
I'd like to make that a priority for the next meeting, to try to get through at least about an hour, 45 minutes to it, to try to get through as much as we can.
Okay, great. And will you be available on the next meeting to help us with that?
Yeah, right.
We can distribute that to everybody so they can look at
Yeah,
it.
I would, in fact, because the areas that I recommend for changes are highlighted in red. It would be very easy to see, although you may want to read it, it's a long, it's 82 pages. And I tried to find everything in there that needed to be corrected, shoreline zoning, in sync with the new one, everything else. Yeah, turn it out, take a look at it, and,
Thank you, Bob. You do an excellent job of writing ordinances. My hat's off to you. My eyes glaze over about page 3. Megan, did you?
Were we discussing meeting more frequently because of our current workload? Were we going to discuss?
Yes. What I wanted to do, Tracy, is just review some of the things we've got ahead of us. So that's one thing. Sebago Road Solar, there's a proposed solar farm we'll call the Null Road. And Bolton 6 Solar, which I know nothing about. And the Minervino Boatyard, which may or may not have a CUP to give us. Do they have one yet? Have they filled one out?
A couple of quick comments on those.
Yeah, please.
There's been a lot of emails going back and forth. I review them. I think Sebago Solar and Walden 6 Solar are the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Emails came from two different people, and they're different. Moreno Pino Boatyard, he's on the back burner. When I last talked to him, email, he wasn't sure if he was going to do it or not. I just got a call 3-4 days ago about, well, I think it's the same land, somebody else was looking at it, so he made a step. I've got to check it. Okay, that's that. I also have report on David Gould Resort. You have a copy. I gave you a copy and Matt a copy of the Sebago Western meeting on the 4th.
So we're not going to review that tonight.
No, I just can't have it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So I'm just trying to rush us through at the end here. Do you have that electronically?
Pardon?
Do you have that electronically?
No.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment. I have 45 seconds.
Sure, please.
I think we deal with the solar, we need to be more ecology minded, and the resource protection, as they say, it's protected the ecology, the habitat, the water, and so on and so forth. I came across a wonderful book, cleaning up some of the corners and when I left this room. So I photocopied one page. It's titled Wildlife Species Diverse, Southern and Central Maine Likely to Decline, or whose local population may be lost due to increased population. There's 181 animals. There are 5 fowls, 2 fish, 3 amphibians, 7 reptiles, 15 mammals, 27 butterflies and moths, and 26 bamboo dragonflies, and 95 birds. Interesting. Say a lot about it, but we can copy this for your curiosity.
About 10 years ago, when I was on the governor's task force on forest certification, the feeling was that the state government has given up on southern Maine. in order to, concentrate on saving what they can in northern Maine. Or just, and that was taking the truth. Across the board. So, it turns out we don't have as much on our agenda as we had thought, which is great. We're down to one solar farm and the shoreline zoning ordinance.
Now, the subdivision ordinance.
So, subdivision ordinance, okay, yes. So that's it. So, we will split the next meeting between the two, or I will recommend in that we split the next meeting between the two. So I don't think we're having to look at extra meetings.
I was against that.
Yeah, I know, we're really good about that.
Public about
We all in lost anyway, so.
That's the only social like that, and you want to take it away from me. Okay, a move